Some time ago, I was introduced to I'm not sure I've understood exactly its source properly, but the way I was introduced to this was the devotees at Oxford University got together with some devotees from the Bhakti Shastri Education Department in ISKCON and came up with a very simple way to understand Bhagavad Gita by expressing, they refined it down to 6 Gita values, although there's so many, that are sequential. And by understanding 6 Gita values, it gives a good picture of the message of Bhagavad Gita. Of course, there's many, many things in Bhagavad Gita not included in those 6 things, but it's simplified. So Gita values is the topic. We're going to introduce the topic a little bit, and then we'll go into the first of the values that's in their list. And there's a paragraph with each of the values. We'll start with spiritual culture. Interesting term, spiritual culture, because I just completed the 16-part seminar on light of the Bhagavad, and Prabhupada uses spiritual culture so many times. You can see the screen from there? No, but behind you, there's some people. If you're fine, then I'm fine. If you're fine, I'm fine. An example of an assumption. It's an unchallenged certainty, something that doesn't change. Deeply held convictions of life. Soul, spirit, and soul. Coverings can change, values can change, behaviors can change. Many things can change through the course of time, but that doesn't change through the course of time. So that's an organization, or the culture, the stage, spiritual culture, because that's what's leading into this. Spiritual culture, that's the previous slide, spiritual culture and its values. So we're going to focus, this discussion is going to focus on values, stated values within Bhagavad Gita. And there are 6, at least, that this group from Oxford University came up with, just to keep it simple. And as I mentioned, this going back to what I just did for 9 days, there's a strong correlation between spiritual culture, spiritual knowledge, and this other term that was this event that Prabhupada had written this book for, culture of the human spirit, elevation of consciousness. And there's that's what real knowledge is, and real knowledge is not simply information. Now, when somebody has knowledge, they also have information, but somebody has information doesn't necessarily have knowledge. My favorite way of explaining this is, some years ago, I've lost track of how many years ago, 8 years ago, something, maybe more. In India, in Delhi, there was an education conference of educators. There are different levels of education. All educators were invited, and because they felt the educators weren't doing very well. At least the organizers of this event felt like that. And the keynote speaker, I wasn't there, but I was told from those who were actually there, he said that education in India today can be summarized in 5 words. Information, 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 no transformation. Because knowledge means transformation, or one who has knowledge is transformed, and they exhibit not only information, but wisdom. I've been spending some time looking forward to our winter retreat. One of the topics that I'll be speaking about in the winter retreat is about Sanatana Goswami's visit to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And there's lots and lots of details, but at one point, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expresses profound appreciation for the character, the spiritual character of Sanatana Goswami. There's a phrase that the upholding or observing etiquette,
Observing Vaishnava etiquette is the hallmark of a wise person, or hallmark of a qualified person, something to that effect. And he and I hold such a person very dear to me. He was appreciating Sanatana Goswami's decision about how he was going to do what he was going to do, without violating etiquette. So that's another way of saying the same thing. It's simple. Often Prabhupada would make a distinction between jnana and vijnana. Jnana is, you can say, information. Knowledge that's on the information platform. But when you act on that knowledge and you get some realization, then it becomes vijnana, or realized knowledge. And what that's the realized knowledge is different than just information. When you apply the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita in practical life, and then you become a realized person, and such a realized person is wise. So that's making a distinction purposely, because the values of Bhagavad Gita are meant not just to be theoretically understood, but to be lived by. And one who does, then they can receive realization about the message of Bhagavad Gita itself. And otherwise, it's, at best, it's information. One more image, and we can begin with our first Gita value. Something that I speak about a lot, because it has everything to do with application of what we know. And that's on the left side of the image. And then there's the right side of the image, and so where we are and where we want to go. And between where we are and where we want to go, there's a big gap. Or what we know and what our state of consciousness is presently. Big gap. And that big gap is a liminal space. Liminal space means between this and that. Just like the place where Lord Nrsingadev killed Hiranyakashipu. It was neither inside nor outside. It was neither day nor night. It was neither this nor that. It transpired, but in between something and something else. Or like coming down the hallway here. In architecture, that's called a liminal space. Just a long hallway. You're not inside, you're not outside. There's doorways and you can go inside. But then there's the hallway, that's a liminal space. Or a patio. It's not your yard and it's not the house, it's a liminal space. Or commonly, by your front door, there's a board that goes across the front door that seals it tight, but it's also in carpentry, it's called a limen. It's neither here nor there. So life is like that. Spiritual life is like that for sure, but life in general is like that. There's what we know or where we want to go and our goals, and then there's where we are. And the transition through liminal spaces, it's a journey, and sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes it's just like a journey, it's just having fun, or an expedition. Anyway, the reason for bringing this up is Gita values are where we want to go. And supposing you're not there yet, you can start to feel bad or feel discouraged or something. But the good news with Bhagavad Gita, the good news with the yoga system, is there's a connecting facilitator. And that connecting facilitator is Krishna. Because where we are, where we want to go is maybe far away. It may seem like it just keeps getting further. The more you make spiritual progress, the more you realize with humility how far you are from the goal. But the transition from where you are to where you want to go, in terms of Gita values or anything, with
spiritual life, just keep it to that. Is it's a journey. And when you're making a journey, there's a bit of the unknown, and you're kind of doing your best as you're going along, but guided by the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita, you can keep going with faith. Okay, so that's the introduction. And here's the first of the 6 Gita values. By the way, mentioned this. There's a short paragraph. They edited it and re-edited it and refined it so they were happy with the language. And I guess I can circulate that somehow. What's the best way to circulate that? The sheet that has the paragraphs that go with the Gita values. Should I send it to somebody? What should I do?
Yes, good morning.
I'll send it to you, and you see that others get it. So here's, without the paragraph, here's just a little summary. From a verse of Bhagavad Gita, this is their starting point, equal vision, which is a challenge. To have equal vision when that's not how we normally see. So one of the ways to take a look at it, the way we normally see, we see varieties. I've never seen a tree that has this many fruits on it. There's varieties of fruits, there's varieties of insects, there's varieties of birds, there's varieties of aquatics, there's varieties of animals, and there's more varieties of animals. So if you're supposed to have equal vision when you're seeing so many varieties, it can be challenging because there are varieties. And let's go to the human form of life, lots of varieties of color and culture and characteristics and dress codes and so many languages and so many things and so many flags and so many things, so many differences. And then just take, a particular event, and a particular event is going to impact different people in different ways. So this is a world, we live in a world where there's many, many differences. Different life forms, different people, different situations, different exchanges, etc. So how are we supposed to have equal vision? I mean, those that are familiar with Bhagavad Gita know the answer. You don't just look at the outside, you look at the inside. The outside can be filled with differences. The graphic is meant to show there's a key at the bottom right, there's the lock at the upper left. The lock is in the shape of a heart, and this is their language right from their paragraph. Gita's idea of equal vision speaks of the equality of all living beings where life is respected regardless of race, gender, caste, creed, or species. So recognizing the differences, that's fine. Respecting the differences, that's fine. And the life that's within, that's why the respect is given. The spark of life, the spirit soul, that's the sameness that's within. A little comment. Just this morning, I received a PDF of a Back to Godhead article written by Nandi Mukhi. I hadn't seen it. She wasn't allowed to send it till they published it. It was this month's issue. So she now has a PDF of her article that she submitted to Back to Godhead. And It's on the 6 Gita values. Really nice. Because one of the main themes is these values, although they come from Bhagavad Gita, they're universal. And what she does in the article, it's a 5-page article, is historical teachers and teachings in the history of China that says the same thing as the Gita values. So it's not a new idea. It's truth is not proprietary. Truth is truth. And so different persons may be in a different degree, and the application of that degree may be a little different, but the values are universal. Specific to Bhagavad Gita is the spirit soul as part of us, Krishna. And so spiritual knowledge or spiritual wisdom is to know. Even in people who are, whatever you might say about them, or other species, whatever you might say about them, there's something that's the same. There's a commonality, although little sparks or lights indicate a soul. So aside from the soul that's within the forms of life, there's souls within the air. The microbes and all kinds of viruses, COVID variants, and all kinds of things floating around in the air. I wore a mask in the flight the whole way, because who knows, there's another one going around. So, the commonality is the unchanging, this is the bottom of the iceberg, unchanging certainty that there's a spiritual energy, a spirit soul that's within the heart of every living entity. All living beings are spirit souls. That's the bottom of the iceberg item. Now that connects with the value. The value is something you hold dear to you, and you try to live your life according to that. The idea, nice concept, is alignment. You align your values with the unchanging realities, and your behaviors, the measurable things, are aligned with both. Then you're in good shape. As long as you understood the unchanging realities properly. So there's the spirit soul, little skinny guy. And the soul has characteristics. Souls are eternal, souls are cognizant, and souls are by nature blissful. This is a very simple presentation. Gita values number 1, Samadarshana. So here's a nice photograph. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And the experience is going to be different because the coverings are different, because often, almost always, the experience is through the senses, and the senses are variant from body to body and form of life to form of life, etc. But at least in the human form of life, although there's varieties of the human forms, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. So it's just flipping it around from the covering and what the covering is experiencing to looking at life from the spiritual perspective. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, which is changing. Just, from the stages of life, our experience is changing. How we see the same object is going to change over time, even with the same being, because the body is changing. So we're spirit souls having a human experience. I've mentioned this a number of times, here we go again. During COVID, this kind of wound down a whole bunch, but pre-COVID, it was very common. And it depends on from one center to another center. Some centers are more proactive and reaching out and inviting student groups to come. But high school teachers, college teachers, et cetera, they like to bring the students in their classroom to the Hare Krishna temple. If it's a religious studies or whatever it is, whatever the title of the thing is. Sometimes it's a Christian group. They want to come and check us out. Something that I learned from those experiences is in particularly in high school, the variations from one organization to another organization to another organization is taught the tip of the iceberg part. There's rituals, and according to the rituals, like, our dress and the shaved head and T-lock, and according to cultural rituals, how we do our worship and so forth, there's where you find the differences. It's not looking at the inside, it's looking at the outside. So they like to come to our temple when we have rituals. And the favorite time to come when we have rituals is during the morning program. Because when we have a morning program, they know, because they've been before, we have deity greeting. Since the pujari comes out and toots on his conch shell 3 times, there's a ritual. And then the recorded music starts and the curtain opens and there's another ritual. Everybody bows down 3 times before the altars. There's one of our rituals. I mean, my guess is the students heard about all these rituals before they got there. And we go to the back of the temple and have another ritual. We offer flowers and have Guru Puja. And then we have another ritual. We sing Jai Radha Madhava and speak Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's our rituals. So one of the ways, depending upon the age group, of helping the students get involved is, I've done this many times, who's the smartest kid in the class? Everybody looks at the same person, because there's one smartest kid everybody knows. And he or she is the smartest kid in the class. Okay, I'm going to give you a quiz. You ready? Point your head. Point your foot. Arm. Point to your shoulder. Now, not point to your body, but point to you. Comedy, they go this way. That's me. Not, but we say, my arm, my head, my foot, my shoulder. There's the object and there's the possessor of the object. My shoe, my shirt. And who's the me that's within? Anyway, it's just a way to engage. Point to the soul. Well, where's the soul? According to Bhagavad Gita, so this is going, the bottom of the iceberg. This is, the soul is very powerful, it animates the body, moves the body, grows the body, and when it leaves, the body is finished. It gives life to both the gross and the subtle body. And the size of the soul, very, very small, according to the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, is 1/10,000th the size of the tip of a hair. We all know the verse. Kesha, Vishnu, etc. And that powerful soul animates the body of an elephant as much as the body of a squirrel. Not that the elephant has a bigger soul, and the squirrel has a smaller soul. The soul is the same size, it's very, very tiny and very powerful. And without the soul, life is finished. So this is the foundation for Samadarshana. Now here's a verse from Bhagavad Gita chapter 15, where Krishna says, the living entity, thus taking another gross body as parts, contains an ear, an eye, or a type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. So the picture is clear. The body has its parts, and there's different body parts according to the arrangements of nature. And the soul is having an experience based upon the covering. And it's very effective. We identify with the covering, and so we identify with the sensory experiences. And then what to speak of in the human form of life, where senses are very well developed, and so there's a strong affinity for identification with the body. Even in different bodies, every living entity is an amazing spirit soul. But the consciousness of all living entities is covered by the illusory energy. This is described in chapter 3. We're doing just a quick review of some of the points of differences along with the Samadarshana. So the coverings are in degrees. There's dense, dark covering, like the covering of the embryo in the womb. And in this purport of 338, Prabhupada compares this to trees, the darkness of ignorance of a tree, and above the mode of ignorance is the mode of passion, where covered state of consciousness is compared to a mirror covered by dust, in contrast to the ignorance of the tree covered, soul covered by the body of the tree. So we'll plant life, animal life, human life, compared to fire covered by smoke. So consciousness is more evolved, less covered in the human form, more covered, less evolved in the animal form, and less evolved and more covered in the plant and tree form. But consciousness is covered. And then there's the state of consciousness where the soul isn't covered. And that's where we want to go. That's on the other side of the liminal space. So a learned person, a humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, that's that fellow on the left, a cow right next to him, an elephant that's behind the cow, a dog that's in the front, and a not very nice looking gentleman, the dog eater. So coverings are different. Spirit soul is essentially Satchitananda, or spiritual beings having different experience depending upon the embodiment and the set of senses awarded. And according to the knowledge and wisdom of Bhagavad Gita, one can see that, the differences, but one can also see what's behind the differences, the sameness. This vision towards personhood, this is the language of these Oxford University folks. This vision, Samadarshana, awards personhood to all, links everyone with the divine grace, and consequently with each other. Now they have very soft-sounding language like the divine grace, without even, because the God word is sometimes people are allergic to it. So with the divine grace and consequently with each other. We're almost done. Equal vision begins with seeing ourselves as what we are and seeing other living entities as who they are. Seeing the differences, no problem. Seeing the sameness, that's the value, the first of the values of Bhagavad Gita, and then spills over to the other 5 values, one after the next. Now there's a interactive segment to this, where, depending upon the audience, we can engage the audience in having discussions. What are some challenging situations where you feel that you cannot see different people with equal vision? Now, if you want to do this, we can do it. Think of one person in your life with whom you have difficulty now or in the past. Just write it down and how you felt when the difficulty was going on. With your inner vision, consciously see that person as spirit soul, even if their behavior was not so spiritual. Their behavior may have been harsh or mindless or whatever, and that was disturbing. And then that same person, see them as spirit soul, and how does that change your feelings toward the person? I remember one of the times I presented this to a college audience was at the Illinois Institute of Technology. And we took about 10 minutes, 10 minutes. And, when it came to discussion, 3 people said, this was the best part of the whole presentation, is the discussion part. Because, when you take it seriously, aside from, it's obvious in one sense, but then to actually do it is another. The behavior is not the person. Or in biblical terms, hate the sin but not the sinner. Some behaviors may be very bad. This kind of question came up in Portland when we were there. Some behaviors are really bad. And how do you have regard for a person when behaviors are really bad? You have to like the behaviors. You don't have to dislike the person. Especially if you have... You may keep a distance from the person, but you have some regard for the person because they're spirit soul. And who knows what experiences they had before this bad behavior became manifest. They're saying you can easily forgive someone if you actually knew what they had been through before their bad behavior. But we don't know. We just see the bad behavior and feel irritated by the bad behavior. So aside from, the psychological and sociological dimension, this is a spiritual exercise. So let's take it 5-6 minutes. Somebody nearby you, it can be 3 people, or it can be 2 people, have a discussion on what you see on the screen. And if you want to report at the end, you can report. If you don't want to, it's okay. You get the idea? Good. Okay. Pick a partner. Groups of 3 also work.
Yeah. Sleeping back one way, that sleeping back. Then if we think about it, yeah, jadi kawan bangun secepat dari It changes slightly.
Finish up, we'll give you another minute. Go ahead. Okay. Lots to share. Especially when it comes to relationships. Especially when it comes to relationships that are troubling. Some darshan, that's a good foundation. And it's challenging when we have harsh people, difficult situations, but samadarshana nonetheless. So, in that, to me, separating the covering from the person and see the person, not just tolerate the covering. So aside from that little exercise that we did at the end, anybody wants to share that exchange, that's fine. Otherwise, any comments or questions at all? It's the concept of Gita values, the concept of culture, the culture of an individual or your family or a group of people or whatever. Yes.
Hey Krishna, good morning. Thank you so much for picking this topic. It's nice to hear and wanting to freshly apply this principle. You were just mentioning just before talking about this exercise about separating the behavior from the people. I've been um, thinking about these school shootings and stuff, it's really difficult to see those people. I mean, though I understand they're also spirit souls and parts of Krishna, but it's really challenging to accept whatever they have done. And you were
Is
saying
it challenging to assess?
accept.
Accept,
Yeah.
okay.
Because you were mentioning, if we understand what led them to act in such a, I mean, completely unimaginable ways, we may be able to forgive.
If we could, it's stronger. If we did understand what's behind that behavior, we could easily forgive them. No, doesn't mean the behavior's okay.
Yeah.
No.
So how to handle that and not let that, disturb my consciousness about the, people in general?
My thought goes to, it all starts in your feedback, meaning how well you can take shelter of the holy name tells a lot about the answer to your question. Because there's what we know, and then there's where we are. So how to get to what you know. So the best facility is the chanting of the holy name. And it's, it's nice sounding and we all accept it. And then to do it is another thing. So my response is how well you chant with a proper mindset or proper engaging yourself with Kali Kali Nama Rupe Krishna Avatar. The form in which Krishna makes himself available in this age is the holy name. As much as one understands that and engages with the holy name in that way is going to give the answer to how to. It's really challenging. It's also really challenging to be attentive when chanting. And how well you do. And that one is going to determine the other one, and not the other way around. In other words, the essence is our relationship with Krishna kind of fell to the wayside. And that makes, the challenge, using the word that you said several times, strong. Not only covering, keeps us there. Avaranatmika Shakti and Pratpekshapmika Shakti throws us into illusion and keeps us there. Very strong. Challenging. I'm just reading Prabhupada's arrival message on board the Jaladuta. And he saw Mission Impossible in front of him. He described it in different ways. How are these people filled with the motivation and compassion to understand transcendence? And then he says something to the effect, I'm not a very learned person, and I'm not a spiritually elevated person, but I have great faith in the holy name. And that tribute that Prabhupada gave to himself it's a fact. It's, so how well we engage with the holy name has everything to do with how well we can deal with circumstances in life that are challenging. Anything else?
Hare Krishna Guru. I'm thinking about that Maharaj in this aspect in Mahabharata. Yeah, one time in such kind of scenario, why they listed
Why what?
Yudhishthira Maharaj and other did not forget the Duryodhana bad activity. Why they have went for the fight and in for this situation. So in our day-to-day life, when the things come, immediately we react on them. Instead of going past and taking the action and going to think about, and when the situation comes, immediately we react. So when we need to, I want to understand when the situation we, and sometimes it go like disadvantage for that in the sense, you keep pausing, others will take the advantage of you, this. So when should react, when should we stop?
You're asking like 4 different questions. We started with why did Yudhishthira not forgive?
Yeah,
This is George, that was the first one.
yeah,
Let's do that one. And then comes the personal application. He did. It was like let them have the kingdom. Arjuna, let them have the kingdom. Krishna wanted it. Because Krishna wanted it, they accepted that's what we're going to do, because Krishna wanted it. Now, he wasn't reacting. He was let them have the kingdom. Bhima is another story. But Yudhishthira and Arjuna let them have the kingdom. Now, to us, then there's the how to not react and instead reflect. And then the third one was when you reflect, there's the apprehension people take advantage of you thinking I'm weak. That's a big one.
yes.
Okay. Two things. When you're reflecting, you still have choices. It's just not like an animal cornered reacting. Not the parasympathetic nervous system kicks in. You don't have control. And it's just it's different between human and animal life. So being a human, then you have thoughts. So the other is the classic Narada and the serpent. The Narada said to the serpent, I said you don't attack. I didn't say you can't raise your hoods. Now what does that mean? Is people, when they raise their hood, they generally attack. They're not in control of, their speech. So the idea is make choices that are appropriate for the circumstance. Make choices for you and me. When you're in this reflective mode, it is a mode of goodness space. Now, what's appropriate? Specifically, what's going to be pleasing to Krishna? There's so many statements, scriptural. The meek shall inherit the earth. There's so many statements. So if I'm concerned, if you or I are concerned, if I don't show strength, someone's going to try to take advantage of me. That's a faithless position. Now, if Krishna is going to protect me, what should I do in my service to Krishna? And there's choices. One is just lying. Another is just, say something. Another is to leave the place. There's when you're in a reflective space, you have your intelligence is stronger and broader, and you can assess what your options are better
when you're in a reflective space than a reactive space. You've gone from animal to human, and you can consider what's appropriate. Better. And you become practiced at it, and specifically, back to her question, you become connected, you go to Krishna, my dear super soul, you're the Antaryami. I'm not sure why this is happening, but I'd like some indication from you. What would be most pleasing for you in this circumstance? If you're thinking like that, then you get Krishna's empowerment. More so than just being reflective. And you practice that, and practice that, and practice that. It's just like the Prabhupada's right over here. You sent me here. This is mission impossible. I don't know how it's going to happen. Now, the Prabhupada, when he was in the boat looking at the Boston Harbor, composing this nice poem, did he have a picture in his mind of what's going to unfold? But he had all the faith in the holy name. And then things unfolded the way they unfolded. There was more tribulation for a long period of time. And then things started to happen very rapidly. Beyond his expectation, beyond his could even conceive of it. So our life is not likely to have those kinds of things happen. But we don't know what's next. But the orientation is not a position of weakness, it's a position of strength. And all that question is from the mood of being Krishna's servant, and he'll protect me. If someone tries to take advantage of me, Krishna will protect me in ways that I don't really understand, but I trust. Krishna is going to protect me. It may look like some way they just see they've taken advantage. Let's not be stupid, but not be fearless. I should be fearful. Be fearless. And move forward with this new position as Krishna's servant. Externally be strong, but not be reactive. Just that internal strength is not a bluff, it's your relationship with Krishna and secure in it. As I'm speaking, I'm thinking of the person that's in charge of there's an organization within China, an ISKCON organization. They don't call it ISKCON because ISKCON is not going to go. They call it something else. And the person that's at the head, there's three people. The one that's at the head, presently, to take turns, is the lady. And the government regularly, at this point in time, there's over 15 years, 20 years, they know who she is. They know that she's fearless. They can't hurt her, and they know that she knows they can't hurt her. They don't try to hurt her. They have to have a lot of respect for her. They come to her, she told me, something's happening over some other part of China. What's with this person? She's there informed. See, the inside person, they trust her. And she's not afraid. She tells me she needs to tell. So, it's like being in a cage with a lion. They can gobble you at any moment, just like that. And she's fearless. You're not powerless. She's protected. So, any circumstance that you're in or I'm in is not going to be tough as that one, as far as I can see. I sat with a government officer, just anecdotal. I sat with a Chinese government officer. He wanted to, so they had for 10 years,
they've gotten the picture of what ISKCON is. This is the government. You know, are they friend or foe, who are they, whatever. So they heard about the GBC, the head of the organization. So I was visiting in Beijing once, and I was told last minute, this head of the religion department of the government wants to meet with the GBC and willing to meet with them. So I went, got me in a car, guy, the driver, and the translator for me. They could have taken me to a river and got me to the river. You know, series of questions, cat, mouse, cat, mouse, cat, mouse. Then finally, you know, will you give me your passport? Without hesitation, he handed me your passport. For the first time during the conversation, he looked at me. Otherwise, just playing with the cigarettes, looking out the window and asking hard questions. You know what? Looking out of the side of his eye to see if I was squirming. When I gave him the passport, you know, I'm a rat in the jaws of a cat. No, aside from those political things, just in relationships with people, Krishna is your protector. One who has faith that Krishna is my protector. There is that a position of weakness. You're a servant. And you're meant to serve. And so what will be pleasing for him? And that's how you have to think. Okay. Something else? Nothing else? Yes?
Equal vision is, in order to see people with equal vision, you need to have eyes and
Need to have?
you need to have eyes and also ears. Right? So what if those people who don't have, who are deaf and dumb,
What about them?
how do they see?
How do they see?
Yeah, how do they say see or how do they act?
Equal vision specifically?
Yeah.
I don't know enough about the subject. However it is that they learn anything, if they're deaf and dumb, whatever that method is for them to learn anything, because they're deaf and dumb, that, you know, it doesn't bar them from transcendental learning things. However, those people that are deaf, I don't know how it works. There must be some way people who are deaf and dumb to understand things. However, whatever that method is, spiritual understanding can also be imparted. Whatever the method is, they learn. Maybe just by seeing, I don't know.
Another question.
You know, read a text or something. I don't know.
And then the second question is about, so you need to have that intelligence to see people with people vision, right? So how do people get that intelligence? Where do they get that from? Even to see, even to have that idea of people.
You know the answer. I'll say the answer that you know. 15:15 Bhagavad Gita. Sarvasya chaham riddhi sanivishto. The other verse. Mataksmitir jnanam apohanancha. I am situated riddhi in the heart of every living being, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. From him comes intelligence. So if one's relationship with Krishna is intact, or is, you know, reasonably vital. That's where intelligence comes from. It gets confirmed from outside, but when something from outside confirms that which is from Supersoul, then that's where the intelligence comes from. Dadami buddhiyo gam tam yidamam priyanti te. You know the verse? Tesham satata yuktanam. Familiar with the verse? Unto those who are constantly engaged in my devotional service, I give the intelligence by which they can come to me. So, and then confirmed by the representatives of Krishna. The intelligence is confirmed.
Yeah, I was wondering mostly about for non-devotees, how do they get the beginnings out?
Well, they don't. The intelligence is given to those who are devotees. Tesham Sattva. So they'll get material intelligence, they'll come to some other conclusion of cause and effect. And what's real, what's not real, what's to be done, what's not to be done. And they have their convictions as well. And they're convinced in their convictions. And so they do according to their convictions. But your question is, how do they get the intelligence to understand transcendence? They're not eligible. Even if it's presented to them, it'll bounce. I said, no, they don't know that. So we, in becoming devotees, then what helps shift from that position that I just described to acceptance, which was your question, the acceptance question. It's association. By association with those that are carrying bhakti, one can receive bhakti. And when you have received bhakti, then Krishna sees, oh, here's one who can understand, and he gives the intelligence by which they can understand. And otherwise, you're going to have a different understanding. Now, as I'm speaking this, I'm thinking of this article that I received this morning from a devotee in China. Now, that this wisdom that's in these 6 values of Bhagavad Gita, this wisdom from other cultures. That, where's the Krishna factor, and where's the bhakti factor? So some semblance of bhakti, at least. Because otherwise, the value is going to be temporal, limited, and now you see it, now you don't. Over time, or circumstance. The good value have a threshold. And then it becomes something, then it goes into reaction instead of the reflective. Right? Thank you. Yeah.
I was thinking about that. Whenever we have any issues with the other person and seeing him as a spirit soul, I think that makes me calm down.
It might be.
Makes me calm down because I think that he's exhibiting his modes of nature,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
But thinking that in that way doesn't change the experience with him again. So seeing him as a spirit soul all the time, is it a good practice or do we need to change?
When you're, 2 things. When your modes go more towards goodness, and the second is when you move even more than just goodness to transcendence, your experience will change. For example, your ability to tolerate. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, coming in from Southwest Airlines from Portland, the flight came in 20 minutes late. And there are people fidgety because they have connections. And then, you know, the person hosting everybody, what do you call this? The airline, the airplane, whatever person works with that, right? You should normally say stewardess, but it was a guy. Anyway, calm him down. Then the pilot came on. Good news, the gate's open. Bad news, there's a plane de-icing. We can't access the gate. Good news, they're halfway done. Okay, they're done. Bad news, there's some other vehicles in the way. So we're, you know, people are fidgeting like anything. No. Then finally, it took an extra 10 minutes to get the thing, the connector to get off the plane. We got off the plane, and we're, you know, belt number 5. I didn't hear that they changed to belt number 4. I'm standing there for half an hour waiting for my luggage to come. Somebody came along and said, "Oh, you were on a flight?" You know, I was looking a little different than everybody else. They announced it. I guess you didn't hear it. So there's plenty of opportunity for whatever. I was more concerned about the driver than me. Bhakti Dari is more concerned about the driver than, you know, than me, than, you know, himself. Anyway, your experience changes. Circumstances may also be irritating and troublesome. Your tolerance, and, you know, Krishna protected me. I said to the person, I could have been standing here all night long. And there wasn't somebody to go to say, hey, what happened here? My luggage didn't come out. Here's my tag. Oh, it's better than before. There wasn't even anybody there to ask that question.
We may become more tolerant.
Your question was experience.
Yeah,
The circumstance may not change, but your experience of the circumstance will change. Another way of saying the same thing. This is my experience that from absorption, so many years of absorption in Srimad Bhagavatam, my experience of the world has changed. The world hasn't changed. My experience has changed. That was.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So think it's not, you know, there's misfortune and so forth. But your experience of that is different.
Mhm.
And how to, you know, back to his question, how to deal with somebody when they're trying to take advantage of you. So that you don't just, you know, be humble and have them take advantage of you. What do? So you get intelligence, you get strength, we have more freedom because Krishna is protecting you. Like that little girl, the lady that came along and said, hey, you were on our flight. I think I was noticeable. You were on our flight. I'm a protector. There was only 2 bags on that belt, number 4, and it was mine.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude for taking time.
Can you do something with the sound? It sounds tinny.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah. He'll just control the volume. You speak and he'll do the same.
Yeah. So I would like to express my deep gratitude for blessing us with your presence today, with myself and my
And your 2-month-old child.
And today's lecture was something that I've been, was what I've been experiencing, or probably the way for me to go forward in my life. I once had an opportunity to practice Krishna consciousness, and there were difficult circumstances, but I did, I took a way out.
You took a detour.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I thought it was I thought I could handle situation with the people outside the shelter, outside the shelter provided. But it was not the case. And, things, even though for a while I was not practicing, but there were situations over the last 2 years where I was in a very dark place financially, personally, and a lot of things did happen. But somehow this time I just
Turn to Krishna again.
yeah, I literally prayed to Narasimhadev, to give me another chance to and make amendments to my life, and I mean, I've been and when I did pray, it might. I mean, I'm not a big person. I mean, I've not been practicing at all. But just the small prayers, I accepted the mistakes that I've done, and I just asked for another chance. And I don't know, things did change. And like you said, there will be very challenging situations in life. But when we take the shelter of God, pray, chant, and be in association of devotees, the experience will be different. The challenges will still remain.
Yes.
We still go through the same difficulties.
Well, not necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the difficulties.
Sometimes you get taken by your heels and shaken because you need it. It's not necessarily the way it happened. If it wasn't, a choice would be made for getting shaken by the heels. Not necessarily the same.
We just moved recently to US, and I mean, when I came here, I did not know. I was just only praying that we are expecting a baby, and he would get Krishna conscious life and association of devotees, and everything just fell in place, and it's just mercy, and yeah. So what you were saying today was really insightful and to my current situation, and thank you very much.
Happy to be with you. Welcome back. Did we meet? Did you and I meet?
No.
Was I visited there many times?
No, I mean, I did start in 2007,
Okay.
but then I continued practicing in Trichy, near Sriram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have Mahaprasad?